a residential setting, the question arises whether it's permissible to install two 100-amp breakers within a 200-amp main breaker panel. According to the National Electrical Code, often abbreviated as NEC, there isn't a specific regulation that explicitly prohibits such an arrangement. This means that, from a code perspective, placing two 100-amp breakers in a 200-amp panel is not inherently a violation. However, it's crucial to understand the underlying principles and potential limitations to ensure a safe and compliant electrical installation. The primary concern when dealing with electrical panels is to avoid overloading the system. The 200-amp main breaker serves as the overcurrent protection device for the entire panel, limiting the total current that can be drawn from the utility supply. This means that the sum of all the loads connected to the branch circuits within the panel should not exceed 200 amps. While the NEC doesn't forbid having two 100-amp breakers, it's essential to consider the actual load that these breakers will be supplying. If the combined load of the circuits protected by the two 100-amp breakers exceeds the panel's 200-amp capacity, it could lead to nuisance tripping of the main breaker or, in more severe cases, overheating and potential fire hazards. To ensure safe operation, it's necessary to perform a load calculation to determine the actual demand on the electrical system. A load calculation involves adding up the continuous and non-continuous loads connected to each circuit in the panel. Continuous loads are those that operate for 3 hours or more at a time, such as lighting and appliances. Non-continuous loads are those that operate for shorter durations, such as power tools and kitchen equipment. The NEC provides guidelines for calculating the demand factors for different types of loads. Demand factors are multipliers that reduce the calculated load to account for the fact that not all loads will be operating at their maximum capacity simultaneously. Once the total calculated load is determined, it must be compared to the panel's ampacity rating. If the calculated load exceeds 80% of the panel's ampacity, it's necessary to either reduce the load or upgrade the panel. In the specific case of two 100-amp breakers in a 200-amp panel, the combined rating of the breakers is 200 amps. This might seem like it's at the panel's capacity, but it's important to remember that the actual load on each circuit is likely to be less than the breaker's rating. For example, a 100-amp breaker might be feeding a subpanel that supplies multiple branch circuits. The total load on the subpanel might only be 50 or 60 amps, even though the breaker is rated for 100 amps. It's also important to consider the type of loads that will be connected to the circuits protected by the two 100-amp breakers. If the loads are primarily non-continuous, the demand factor will be lower and the total calculated load will be less. However, if the loads are primarily continuous, the demand factor will be higher and the total calculated load will be greater. In addition to load calculations, it's important to ensure that the wiring and overcurrent protection devices are properly sized for the loads they will be serving. The NEC provides tables that specify the minimum wire size required for different ampacities. It's also important to use overcurrent protection devices that are rated for the interrupting capacity of the circuit. The interrupting capacity is the maximum fault current that the device can safely interrupt without failing. Another consideration is the physical space available within the electrical panel. Electrical panels are designed to accommodate a certain number of breakers. If the panel is already full, it may not be possible to add two 100-amp breakers without replacing the panel with a larger one. In some cases, it may be possible to use tandem breakers, which are narrower than standard breakers and allow two circuits to be installed in the space of one. However, tandem breakers are not permitted in all panels, and it's important to check the panel's listing to ensure that they are compatible. It is also vital to ensure proper installation practices. Firstly, all electrical work should be performed by a qualified electrician who is familiar with the NEC and local electrical codes. Secondly, the electrical panel should be properly grounded and bonded to ensure safety. Thirdly, all wiring connections should be made securely and properly torqued. Fourthly, the panel should be labeled to identify the circuits that are protected by each breaker. Fifthly, the panel should be inspected and tested to ensure that it is operating safely and correctly. In summary, While the NEC does not explicitly prohibit placing two 100 amp breakers in a 200 amp main breaker panel in a residential setting, it's crucial to consider the load on the circuits, perform a load calculation, and ensure that the wiring and overcurrent protection devices are properly sized. It's also important to follow proper installation practices and to consult with a qualified electrician to ensure a safe and compliant electrical installation. Furthermore, it is important to note that local electrical codes may have additional requirements or restrictions that are not found in the NEC. It is always a good idea to check with the local building department or qualified electrician to ensure compliance with all applicable codes and regulations. Let's delve deeper into the technical aspects of electrical panels and breaker configurations. Electrical panels, also known as load centers or distribution panels, serve as a central hub for distributing electrical power throughout a building. They receive power from the utility company and distribute it to individual circuits that supply lighting, appliances, and other electrical equipment. The main breaker in the panel is the primary overcurrent protection device for the entire system. It is designed to trip and interrupt the flow of electricity if the total current exceeds the panel's ampacity rating. Branch circuit breakers, on the other hand, protect individual circuits from overloads and short circuits. They are typically rated for 15 amps, 20 amps, or 30 amps, depending on the size of the wire and the type of load being served. The NEC specifies the types of overcurrent protection devices that are permitted for use in electrical panels. Circuit breakers are the most common type of overcurrent protection device, but fuses are also permitted in some applications. Circuit breakers are resettable, while fuses must be replaced after they have blown. When selecting circuit breakers for an electrical panel, it's important to choose breakers that are compatible with the panel's busbar system. The busbar is the metal bar inside the panel that carries the electricity from the main breaker to the branch circuit breakers. Different manufacturers use different busbar designs, so it's important to choose breakers that are specifically designed for the panel. It's also important to choose breakers that are rated for the voltage of the electrical system. In most residential applications, the voltage is 120 volts or 240 volts. In commercial and industrial applications, the voltage may be higher, such as 208 volts, 277 volts, or 480 volts. The NEC provides guidelines for selecting the appropriate voltage rating for circuit breakers. The ampacity of an electrical panel is determined by the size of the busbar and the main breaker. The ampacity is the maximum amount of current that the panel can safely handle. It's important to choose a panel with an ampacity that is sufficient to handle the anticipated load. The NEC provides guidelines for calculating the load on an electrical panel. The load calculation takes into account the size and type of all the electrical equipment that will be connected to the panel. It's also important to consider the demand factor, which is a multiplier that reduces the calculated load to account for the fact that not all equipment will be operating at its maximum capacity simultaneously. Once the load calculation is complete, it can be compared to the panel's ampacity rating to ensure that the panel is adequately sized. If the calculated load exceeds the panel's ampacity, it's necessary to either reduce the load or upgrade the panel. Upgrading a panel involves replacing the existing panel with a larger one that has a higher ampacity rating. This can be a complex and expensive process, so it's important to carefully consider the alternatives before making a decision. In some cases, it may be possible to reduce the load by using energy-efficient appliances or by shifting some of the load to a different panel. Another important aspect of electrical panels is grounding and bonding. Grounding is the process of connecting the electrical system to the earth. This provides a path for fault current to flow back to the source, which helps to protect people from electric shock. Bonding is the process of connecting all the metal parts of the electrical system together. This helps to ensure that all the metal parts are at the same electrical potential, which reduces the risk of electric shock. The NEC specifies the requirements for grounding and bonding electrical panels. It's important to follow these requirements carefully to ensure a safe and reliable electrical system. In addition to grounding and bonding, it's also important to protect electrical panels from physical damage. Electrical panels should be installed in a location where they are not likely to be damaged by impact or moisture. They should also be protected from unauthorized access. The NEC provides guidelines for protecting electrical panels from physical damage. It's also important to keep electrical panels clean and free of debris. Dust and dirt can accumulate inside the panel and cause overheating or other problems. Electrical panels should be inspected regularly to ensure that they are in good condition. The inspection should include checking for loose connections, damaged wiring, and other potential hazards. Any problems that are found should be repaired immediately. Electrical panels are an essential part of any electrical system. By understanding the technical aspects of electrical panels and following the NEC guidelines, it's possible to ensure a safe and reliable electrical system. Understanding the National Electrical Code or NEC is crucial for anyone working with electrical systems. The NEC is a comprehensive set of standards and guidelines that govern the safe installation and maintenance of electrical wiring and equipment. It is updated every 3 years to reflect the latest technological advancements and safety practices. The NEC is not a law itself, but it is adopted by many state and local jurisdictions, making it legally binding. The NEC is divided into chapters, each of which covers a specific aspect of electrical systems. Chapter 1 covers general requirements such as definitions, wiring methods, and equipment grounding. Chapter 2 covers wiring and protection, including overcurrent protection, wiring methods, and conductor sizing. Chapter 3 covers wiring methods and materials, including raceways, cables, and conductors. Chapter 4 covers equipment for general use, including appliances, lighting fixtures, and motors. Chapter 5 covers special occupancies such as hazardous locations, healthcare facilities, and swimming pools. Chapter 6 covers special equipment such as electric signs, elevators, and electric welders. Chapter 7 covers special conditions such as emergency systems, fire alarm systems, and low voltage systems. Chapter 8 covers communications systems such as telephone systems, data networks, and cable television systems. Chapter 9 contains tables and examples that are used to apply the NEC requirements. The NEC is a complex and detailed document, but it is essential for ensuring the safety of electrical systems. Anyone working with electrical systems should be familiar with the NEC and should follow its guidelines carefully. In addition to the NEC, there are also many other standards and guidelines that apply to electrical systems. These standards are developed by organizations such as the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, often referred to as IEE, the National Fire Protection Association, called NFPA, and Underwriters Laboratories or UL. These standards cover a wide range of topics, including electrical safety, power quality, and electromagnetic compatibility. It's important to be familiar with these standards and to follow their guidelines when working with electrical systems. Furthermore, continuing education and training are essential for staying up to date with the latest electrical codes, standards, and technologies. The electrical industry is constantly evolving, and it's important to have the knowledge and skills necessary to work safely and effectively. There are many different ways to obtain electrical education and training. Vocational schools, community colleges, and universities offer electrical programs. There are also many online resources available, such as courses, webinars, and tutorials. It's important to choose a program that is accredited and that covers the topics that are relevant to your work. In addition to formal education and training, it's also important to gain practical experience. Working under the supervision of a qualified electrician is a great way to learn the trade and to develop your skills. It's also important to stay involved in the electrical industry by attending conferences, reading trade publications, and participating in professional organizations.